G'day everyone, this is Rangadad, not financial advice, just like I'm looking at the market. Sorry I was a little late, a bit busy at the moment. It looks like Bitcoin might be close to a temporary low here. Lots of caution to be had though, because it's a pretty significant move to the downside. Lots of momentum in this one, lots of volume throughout the US session again. I don't know what you guys are doing over there in the US, but you're screwing everyone else who has to sleep. Anyway, it failed the breakout of this channel. So this has been a pretty important channel for us. The mid bands had a lot of action, as has the top, and the bottom's held a couple of times through history as well. So looks like we're still in it for the time being. Potential bounce area at the mid band again. There is this trend line as well, which I wouldn't say is a super strong one, but it's there. May provide a bit of support. At the moment, though, Bitcoin is trying to base cumulative volume delta. Looks like it's trying to turn around. It is quite low at the moment as well. On the RSI, you don't get that low very often, and the momentum for it is actually quite low as well. So I would expect a little bit of a bounce some stage soon. But still lots of volume coming through. It's looking like still a lot of sell volume. Look at this one. Yeah, that's still all good. Bitcoin longs. Okay. They're buying back in, which is handy. You want to see these guys buying in on the dips pretty significantly too today, so that's a good sign. This is the main failure that was unfortunate. So the last couple of videos have been focused on total crypto versus stable coins, and did warn about this 200 EMA here on the 1 hour. What I was hoping for was basically a retest of this trend line here, which is a fairly strong trend line. I wouldn't say it's fantastic, but yeah, it failed that quite spectacularly. It looked like it was actually going to test it and go up here. That sneaky little closure above the wick here, and then just complete reversal of it. Yeah, that's a major rejection of that 200 EMA. So question is now, one, where's it going to base? Realistically, there is a little bit of a horizontal support line here where we're at. Horizontal support lines tend to be stronger than trend lines, but just based on how many times price action has hit this trend line here, I'm kind of expecting it to come all the way back down at some stage. Now, do we get a bounce in the meantime? Yeah. I mean, this was a good retest of the 50 EMA on the 1 hour. So it shot straight through it, back up, retested, and then rejected off it. So look, that's a pretty negative sign, not going to lie. yeah, could we find support here? Yes, this was a previous support level. It has hit this area a couple of times and bounced off. The bulls really need to get interested in it around this level. Momentum is starting to slow down to the downside, but could just be because it's getting quite overextended too. So what you want to see is a switch in momentum of the total crypto market cap to stable coins, and then we can talk about a bounce. But whether BBWP stays to the upside as well at the same time, that will be probably a key factor in whether or not we're going to actually bounce and break through those key moving averages and the key trend lines to the upside. At this stage, we've come back so far, it would have to be a pretty significant move. But it certainly can happen. Like moves when BBWP is high can be pretty significant. You see the move that we made when BBWP was actually decreasing. So let's see what happens. But at the moment, so this is sort of what I'm actually hoping for. Obviously, we had quite high BBWP through this whole area, and then we actually had a switch to the upside in momentum while BBWP was at its extremes, and we did get a significant bounce. Kind of need to see the same sort of bounce action here. And BBWP can stay in its extremes for quite a while, both negative and positive, so low and high. So yeah, let's see what happens. It's certainly shaking out a lot of long liquidity in these moves. Kind of in no man's land again on the pivot levels. I mean, it'd be pretty brutal if we just trudged down into this level here and then bounced, which could actually be the play, to be honest. It's coming down with a fair bit of force though, so like this here is actually massive extension to the downside. That's probably going to actually drag price action with it. Typically, you would not see the cyclic RSI with both bands above 50 and the actual RSI value at 18. I don't think I've ever actually seen that. That's freaking bizarre. You can see what happens when you're that overextended outside the bands. Once it comes back inside the bands, it can actually bounce quite significantly. So I want to see this cyclic RSI turn around a bit as well. Just trying to see that there was another one here. So it actually looks pretty similar to this, not coming off as big a highs. Oops. But you can see we've got a similar extension to the downside. Now, this little bounce could be a little bounce. We haven't come down with sort of that much force or that much of a change in price action, I don't think. Probably not to the same degree. A little bit of a lower slope, but both bands are above the 50. And yeah, as you can see, it actually kept going even while cyclic RSI was sort of resetting. So bear that in mind. This could happen. That would I dare say, see us come down and reclaim this previous wick. So at the moment, that's kind of what it looks like it wants to do. There are some, like, it is leaving a lot of vectors in its wake, which is good. Where did I? It took us a while to recover the vectors over here, though, so just keep that in mind. Looking at this, you would expect something similar. Just the fact that we're in no man's land on so many different levels. No man's land here, bounce up into these moving averages. Yep, probably going to find rejection. So we could actually stay in the bearish control zone on this for a little while on the 1 hour. Actually, what I'll want to do, that's the area that I was looking at before. So yeah, we did a little bit of a different scenario to where momentum and BBWP were over here. It did, though, continue to stay in the bearish control zone this whole time while BBWP was increasing, and even as BBWP was coming down. So yeah, it's going to be a tricky one. As you can see here, it just bounced and just touched the 9. I think that's a 9 EMA, and just kept going to the downside. So shorter time frames probably going to be the play here, but it looks like potentially going to come down and retest this trend line. And if we did play that move out here, so basically come down and just go sideways and down until we hit this pivot, pick up this trend line, then you would expect a bounce. Like, that's going to be fairly key level. I think 91K looks like it could be important. If we're breaking through that, then we're going to be breaking down from levels of total crypto market cap versus stable coins that we haven't been at since we were in that 6-month range. So yeah, that's, Bitcoin's looking like it wants to be done. It's looking like this should have been the cycle top. Just want to zoom out and see what it was like at the last cycle top. Sorry about that. Yeah, I mean, once we were breaking these horizontal levels, it was done. It was already well and truly done. We were breaking out of the bottom of this range that was occurring through the top. But yeah, similar break of a key uptrend is what I'm looking for here. And realistically, that was a pretty good uptrend that we've broken. It would be abnormal for us not to retest that, although you may argue that this was the retest of that. And now we're done. But yeah, compared to last cycle, it actually does look a little bit like this one here. You could argue that we might come down and then get a bounce back up, but I would suggest that's going to be a dead cat bounce. Just looking at the way things have played out historically, could even argue that that's the trend line there. Broke through, dead cat bounce, and done. That was the second. That was actually the all-time high at that point, but much lower low on that compared to the previous high. And we're pretty much doing the same thing at the moment. The true break of this trend, like massive break, would be breaking this trend line here. I think that would see some pretty major lows on Bitcoin. Yeah, at the moment, it's just whether or not we can actually find some support somewhere around here, potentially this horizontal line, which, yeah, I mean, it's tested that a couple of times. You're basically looking for for that to hold up in line with this trend line here. We still haven't closed the daily, so we could still bounce. This daily could be an inside just doji, and we could actually still go up, but at the moment, stochastic momentum is below the signal line. It's not looking great on the daily either at this stage. The close is the key, so keep an eye out for that. All right, I'll just have a look at Bitcoin price action itself. Daily looks nasty at the moment. What we don't want to see is a closure below the value area low. Yeah, it kind of looks like it wants to pull back further. Stochastic momentum is actually just above the signal line in price action. Closure within this channel, I think, is going to be relatively negative, but we haven't really lost the recent low either. Yeah, it could be a shakeout. We could get one more day of downside, shake out this wick, and then we bounce. But again, I think that bounce is probably going to end up being a dead cat bounce. It looks like it's going to depend on global macro stuff at the moment. And the one bit of bullishness is that global liquidity is ticking up a little bit, but you got to keep in mind that it's at very low levels compared to what it's been in the past. We've made a lower high on that already. This particular bull market on stocks has not had a higher high on global liquidity. Ethereum needs to hold this trend line. It has rejected this particular trend line again so far, and the 9 EMA on the daily. It's not great. Is that the 9 or a 5? Yeah, 9. So, like, looking at these charts, you'd kind of expect a little bit more downside. Ethereum momentum's actually, the signal is above the signal line, which is a little surprising, but momentum was thrown out a little bit by this particular candle. A big wick to the downside, and then a close to the upside. Yeah, not looking spectacular. Could find support here though. Geez, the volumes are low on Ethereum. Is there any good news? Did Powell fuck everything up? What he was talking today and tomorrow. And then we got inflation rate tomorrow as well. Forecast is for a drop. Core is forecast to go up, so inflation rates sort of forecasts are all over the shop. That's probably going to drive the market. Now, going into this sort of news, having Bitcoin pulling back into it is not a bad thing. CME is holding this trend line as well, so that's something to keep in mind. If CME bounces here, that would be a good sign. What you don't want to see is a CME closure below this. Now, BBWP is actually increasing significantly, though, and momentum is to the downside. It's just, it looks like it's holding this trend line at the moment. Did reject off this one, though. So that's probably a more important trend line. This one has held up price action for quite a while and had a number of tests of it. But this trend line here coming through these two lows on the breakout, that could be a significant break there. So still in kind of no man's land. We haven't really had a higher term confirmation to the downside. There's still too many key trend lines that are providing support and resistance in this area. It's basically reverse wedging at the moment. But yeah, momentum is to the downside, so kind of got to be a little bit bearish. But yeah, Bitcoin could turn around at any point and just rip the shorters to shreds. So let's have a look at where liquidity's at as well. So sentiment yesterday actually had a slight uptick in smart money, and that's not a bad sign for stocks. IBIT, if you look at the monthly, we haven't had any major trades versus all these ones at the highs. So I suspect these guys don't think that we've had the full pullback yet. That's a bearish sign, I would say. Same with Coinbase. So Coinbase did get a little bid here. It could have been a sell, but it's pulling back with Bitcoin at the moment. It's certainly nothing compared to what the trades that were going on at the highs there. Coinbase 2x long. Yeah, again, nothing really in the last week or so. So it looks like these guys are just sitting back and waiting for more of a dip. Again, not a great sign. Marathon hasn't had a lot of interest. Let's just go to the 30-day. Yeah. No massive trades coming through on the longer time frames. So consumer staples is still edging up as well. This is suggesting a switch into safety, and consumer discretionary is coming down over the month. So that's kind of suggesting a bit of risk off. Financial sector this week has been sort of down the last couple of days. Got a decent buy, I would say, this morning, but trend is still to the downside, although this is a pretty decent looking recovery at the moment. The fact we haven't had a major sort of downturn in financials suggests the market still wants to go up a little, but it is preparing. I think it's like the big guys are preparing for a major dip at the moment. Energy select, so energy sectors going up a little, which is another can be another defensive sector. Healthcare pulling back a little bit here. Again, times of recession, that's probably going to get hurt a little bit. Utilities is pretty flat. That's typically a defensive sector as well. Real estate is actually still relatively high. That's a little surprising. No real action up the top here yet. They might have done all their sells through here. Biotech had a decent sell there by the look of it. Coming down hard. Communications services. Looks like it's about to roll over as well, potentially. Surprised there's nothing major at the highs there, though. Metals and mining. Looks like it may actually pull back from here. Technology, yeah, it's been up this week. It has been a bounce on some of the semiconductors. So. Oh, yeah, Bitcoin's getting a little bit of support from CVD, cumulative volume delta, but yeah, it's potentially going to find resistance at around 95, 96K. Lots of buy orders coming in. There's not a lot of sell orders coming in above here, and I think that's been the problem. I mentioned it yesterday, I think, or the day before, that there wasn't a huge amount of sell orders coming in on the runs up. You know, you compare it to previous peaks and stuff. Compare it to like the runs up to the all-time highs and things like that. There's a lot of sell orders coming in. We're just not seeing anything near that, and even the buyers not there like they have been in the past. So it's getting a lot thinner through this area for buying and selling, really. There are some sellers when it does get up to the top, but it's pretty thin. But we are starting to see get a bit more interest on these dips, but there is a lot of buyers positioned all the way down to sort of 89, and there will be more come into the market. There is a lot down around 75 at the moment. These have all come in fairly recently too, so that's interesting to see. That's potentially going to give us a target of around that 75, maybe even lower, maybe even into the 69K mark. Back into the previous all-time high, the previous bull run. It's a long way from here, but people are stacking their orders, getting ready. I suspect though there should be a bounce around 85-ish. Decent bounce. For the time being though, this does not look like a great little bounce yet. Open interest has gone up significantly, but I suspect that's mainly, I would have said that's mainly shorts, but there's actually a lot of green on the bid-ask delta on this dip. Like a lot of green compared to previous dips where they've been bought up. There's another big dip. Where was that wick? Yeah, I mean, you can see though, it doesn't necessarily tell you there's a bottom coming in. Like big chunks of green here didn't really hold. We still saw more dipping. So could be a good sign of a temporary bounce, but typically it doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to find the bottom right now. Actually, not even as high as some of these ones in here. So yeah, realistically, I think we're kind of in no man's land. There is a horizontal level here that may hold, but higher term timeframes are not really in our favor. I'm very surprised that it didn't go into the 100K level though. Like, there's a lot of liquidity in there that I would have thought it would have tried to sweep that. I guess all these people longing the shit out of it in the last couple of days. So 94 is definitely on the cards here. Go to the 2 week, I think it'll pick up. That has been a decent level for quite a while. I was surprised that this dip here didn't actually get into that liquidity a little bit more. But yeah, there was still a fair bit up here that it could have taken. Anyway, I guess that was just too attractive. And the question then is it going to be done with this? Is that going to be enough for it? Or are we just going to keep dropping? Because when we zoom out a bit, there is a lot further down. Especially compared to what's up here now. So yeah, I think 80, 84, 85, or looks like it's coming down a little bit now. A lot more liquidity down around the 83 level. So probably bounces along the way, but it really looks like it wants to keep pulling back at this stage. I'm gonna have a quick look at Ethereum on the same model. Ethereum looks like it may want to keep going to the 2500 at least as well. 3 month on that. This dip was so big it didn't even yeah, that's an interesting chart, that one. Probably got to go back a hell of a lot longer. Oh yeah, look at that shit. Didn't notice that until now. It just went hard for this liquidity, hey. That's insane. Ethereum may not actually go back down all the way to that level. There is a fair chunk of liquidity here though. So we could see the 1900s in Ethereum, which seems nuts, but it's possible. Solana has a fair chunk of liquidity below as well. So 188, even 180 is on the cards for Solana. That's just on the 4 hour. Yeah, the 3 month. Sorry, the 48 hour. 3 months, there's not a lot. I'm a little surprised it stopped there rather than sweeping this level, but yeah, I mean, if the rest of the market is tanking, then Solana down into 161 is a possibility. Potentially even 150, but wow, look at that liquidity sweep on the high. Yeah, okay. That is pretty well it for today. It looks like it's a little bit of a stronger bounce. Actually, I'll have a quick look. So, equal weight is still sort of trudging up on the NASDAQ. Still not liking the look of this. It looks like it's getting ready to pull back pretty hard. Haven't really broken this trend line yet. The fact that we've got momentum to the upside where BBWP is resetting on a lot of these, it looks like it's ready to pull back. SPX, I mean, probably didn't draw that trend line very well, but yeah, there's no real break here. Momentum is the upside and BBWP is resetting, but that could all change very quickly. You get one down candle and your momentum's potentially going to switch to the downside and BBWP is going to jump up. So yeah, the thing that is sort of holding this market at the moment, I think, is a little bit of liquidity to the upside. Global liquidity is just moving to the upside a little bit. No real confirmation either way today, I think. Even the equal weights haven't really provided any significant confirmation, apart from they are actually not making another high versus previous day. So to me, equal weights are started a downtrend. IWM, that's a failure of this level so far, and it looks like it's actually retested it too on the same day. Has picked up the 200, the 50 EMA there, but this could actually come down quite hard. BBWP is low, momentum's below the signal line. Yeah, this looks set for a pretty decent pullback. XLI not making another high yet. Really, that's a very different momentum signature to the others. So industrials may actually go up a little. Oof, XLY, XLP, big breakdown on that. So again, that's suggesting that markets should come down quite a bit more. It's just whether, like yesterday I talked about, the market seems to be able to shift money into other areas that it's dumped in the last couple of months. So they go up while other sectors come down. And overall, the big guys aren't losing that much money, but there's a flush of liquidity out of the system, flush of retail, getting a lot of the leverage positions out of the system. I mean, I don't know whether that's a deliberate thing or not, but it just seems like it's potentially happening, which could be a reason for the market to keep going up. But at the moment, there is a lot of signs that the market should actually start to retrace a bit more. This being one of them, XLP versus SPY, that's confirmed break of this trend line. The market should be coming down as this is going up. Typically, that's what's happened on key trend line breaks of this anyway. So, equal weight, XLY, XLP is coming down as well with momentum, and BBWP is quite high, so I expect that to come down more. First little sign of a potential break of this smaller trend line on the equal weight XLP versus SPY. So that again is suggesting that there could be a bigger pullback on the cards. Staples is going up, discretionary is coming down on the equal weights. Regional banking got a bump today, and this is what I'm talking about. Like, this is going up, other sectors are coming down, but it's not breaking key trend lines or anything like that. It's just money shifting these guys will take profit reasonably quickly, and I think it's just the big guys are squeezing out whatever profit they can out of these positions, getting ready for a drop. Home construction, a little bit of support there. Might have been something Powell said. IVV, what is IVV? Just going to have a look at IVV. Core S&P, yeah. So home builders, yeah, it's just a little bounce here. Still below the moving averages. I mean, it kind of looks like it wants to actually find a base here, but if home builders and home construction go up, then you would think the market would actually follow, but there is still room to move. So, semis is struggling with the middle of this, or with the key resistance level here by the look of it. I would have thought that would have filled more of that gap already. It has cleared some of the key moving averages though, so maybe a little bit of up on semis. Yeah, DJI gold is sitting at a key level. DJT gold has broken that key level. Again, this is a sign there should be bigger pullbacks in the market. DJT is actually finding a bit of support here. This market is all over the shop. Definitely at an end of cycle here. Lots of money shifting around different areas. DJI, like this looks like a massive double top. DJI is going to have to clear the all-time high by a significant margin for it to actually not end up being a double top, or it'll have to find significant support at 41,800-ish. Yeah, you'd kind of expect this to roll over. But decent update clearing the 9 EMA there so far, so fuck knows with this market. It's ridiculous. VIX is staying above this trend line. Skew yesterday was up slightly. So again, we've had a fairly flat day. Most of the stocks and indices did actually go up a little bit. But yeah, it looks like skew. It'll be an interesting read today. If skew bounces, like goes up again, then I would actually expect a little bit more upside, which is probably going to clear a lot of the key trend lines, but could just be a false break too. So shorter time frames are pretty well the key. Now, one indicator though is this one here, which this is a live indicator too. So one of the things with this is you can use it for intraday trading to give you an idea of direction, because the peaks here tend to mark highs in S&P 500. Each time they've rolled over, it's been a high, and the bottoms tend to mark pretty close to the bottom. So we're ranging though, like it's not shifting significantly, but it does have a long way to come compared to something like this. So I'm actually expecting more of something like this to happen soon. We can get bounces along the way and stuff as well, but the fact that this is turned down from a lower high is probably an indication that yeah, there should be more downside. Like, again, the market can stay irrational longer than we can stay solvent, but just like the German market is still going ahead full steam and momentum's to the upside and BBWP is crossing to the upside. So this seems ridiculous, given the way the economy looks over there, but whatever. Chinese market had a little bit of a pullback here. Might pull back into was Hang Seng anyway. Might pull back into this level before probably bouncing, I would say. Maybe a little lower, 20,400, but that's not a bad run up so far. Could just be a temporary pullback as well. Yeah. Somewhere in this level would keep it fairly bullish, I would say. UK 100 is still climbing-ish. Bit of an indecision day happening at the moment, but still definitely postured to the upside. So Japanese market's finding a bit of a bounce as well. Pretty good stochastic momentum reset there. It might go on a run. So it's funny that the US market looks like it should start to pull back, but the rest of the world, apart from Australia's doing basically the same thing as the US, but a lot of the other major economies around the world are actually running up pretty significantly at the moment. So treasuries is still pulling back. Not much conviction in this at the moment, but yeah, it may find some support around here. High yield junk pulling back a little. It's actually momentum's to the downside with increasing BBWP, so that may actually pull back quite a bit more. Get rid of that. Yeah, high yield junk, I suspect, going to come into this sort of level here. We should see the market pull back significantly as well, if that's the case. Yeah, this bond indicator is still pulling back a bit as well. Not as significantly as some of the others, but like what we could be getting ready for, the market could just rip to the upside and have a blow off top and then crash. It's kind of, yeah, it's certainly not an aggressive pullback yet. Certainly, it's pretty hard to go long based on some of the technicals there. 2 years just butting up against this trend line again, getting rejected by both of these at the moment. Hopefully the 2 year pulls back from here. And that'll probably depend a lot on the CPI reads. So it's one to pay attention to. Yeah, well, 10 years in an interesting spot as well. This is a reasonably highly traded zone where it's at the moment. Again, could pull back from here, put in a lower high. Depends on CPI, I think. So CPI is going to be key. Copper, big pullback on copper off this previous resistance and vector candle recovery. Still think copper is going to have more in it. This is probably just the first leg up. Sorry, the second leg up of 3. probably going to get something similar to that once it pulls back and finds a level to bounce from. Probably in around $4.45, I'd say. Gold, still a bit of a powerhouse. Doji at the top isn't great. It hit what, 2940. It's probably got a little bit more in it, to be honest, but that's a pretty decent sort of topping signal as well. I'd say there's a lot of the big guys that have been in it for a while are starting to take profits. So you're probably going to see a little bit of chop at the top. Gold versus silver. Silver's trying to hold its level against gold, and silver is still holding this trend line as well. Oil, yeah, okay, so we did break that trend line. I would expect oil to at least come back up into this sort of region in here, around the $77 mark. Dixie looks like it's found a bit of resistance there at the 107, 108 level I'm in. If it breaks below that trend line, then we should have a decent move to the downside. Which should theoretically support stocks, but that's the thing. There's a lot of factors going on at the moment. This is actually the first clear sort of tick to the upside on global liquidity today as well. And again, if global liquidity starts a run to the upside, then I'd actually expect stocks to go with it. So that's a point for the bulls there. Percentage of stocks above 15 moving average, bit of an inside sort of doji there. Not a huge read off that either way. This is an interesting one. So this is a break of that trend line, and it's a decent trend line for the Mag 7. That could lead to a pretty big pullback. Tesla has actually broken through this region that I thought it was going to have some support at 340. So this is, I'm pretty sure this is now a negative gamma on the options. This could actually pull back into 260s. 250 would be a gap close here. So yeah, poor old Elon's getting fucking beat about, trying to help the US sort out their budgets, their government efficiency stuff, and fighting with freaking OpenAI at the same time. Nvidia, it's still kind of just struggling with this level. Yeah, I mean, Nvidia should keep going, but BBWP is starting to drop off. What I'd still, excuse me, I'd still like to see a drop into earnings on Nvidia, and then it impresses the market. Otherwise, it could be like a lot of the big tech stocks. If it just keeps going up into earnings, it'll hit this resistance, and then I think that'll be the point at which everything falls apart. Google's still struggling. Microsoft is still struggling. Microsoft should hit this buy zone. RK risk is off. Apple, yeah. 3M rolling over a bit. It's my momentum. Calculate, damn it. Yeah. Amazon holding this bottom trend line for the time being. So we may still get a couple of days of upside. If CPI comes back good, a lot of these may pump and fill the gaps. Meta still looking strong, jeez. Airbnb pulling back a little bit. Would be good for Airbnb to break through that on its earnings. AMD's kind of sideways, AVGO's side. When does AVGO report? A while. SMCI, so that reported yesterday, I believe. No, reporting after the close today, I think. Yeah. Potential pullback on this, looking at that candle so far. It's going to be an interesting one though. It could bounce and hit this level here, 48-ish, 49 even on SMCI on earnings. I'd expect it to find some resistance there though. SM Stellantis is going up a little bit. Ford looks like it's finding a little bit of support here as well. ASX is still holding that trend line. Yeah, the market is choppy and all over the shop at the moment. A little bit of sideways actions here on Bitcoin. Cumulative volume delta has gotten back above the moving averages that I got on it here. Not really confirmed, but it is very low as well, the RSI. So it's just a matter of whether this is sort of a sideways move into more downside or whether actually we get a decent bounce here up into these moving averages. This stage, I'm actually kind of looking at it as more sideways action and then down based on what I'm looking at today. Litecoin, big pullback off the highs on Litecoin as well. Finding a bit of support around this reasonably highly traded level. Last time it went sideways. And again, it looks like it's basing a little bit. It's retesting its 200 EMA there. Bitcoin doesn't have that luxury because it's well below its 200 EMA. And that's another sign. All the key moving averages are below the 200 EMA. The 200 is below the 800 on the 15-minute. This is still going to be a key channel to break out of. And yeah, I think if we're breaking these, even a break of these wicks here, I'd expect us to actually smash through this mid band of this channel pretty significantly. That would bring 88 and even potentially lower into play based on what we were looking at in terms of liquidation levels. CME's actually broken the previous low. It is testing its band though, so CME is probably the last hope here. It's got the best trend line at the moment that it's tested a few times and bounced off. Break below that, and yeah, I'd say we're down into some interesting levels. You want to see Bitcoin closing above that trend line if we can. All right, that'll do. Catch us later.